Alright, hello everyone. What we're going to do today is start rigging up one of our frigates from Black Seas. Now, I've recently painted this one, and I'm trying to do this one up for my son here. I've done some red highlights on here. No specific nation, just his favorite color is red. So I put some red highlights on there, red on top. So I'm hoping that once this is kind of rigged up and we get the sails, you know, that'll look pretty cool. The wood is the desert tan that I spray coat with, and then I just use some different browns that I had to try and make it more of a like wood type, you know, ships are made of wood, right? So paint it up a little bit, and then it's got a Argax Earth shade on there from Games Workshop. And that really seeps into the lines. I really like how it makes the panel lines on the ship really pop out for the decking. So I think that's cool. I left the boats off of here. I've seen different ships without boats. A lot of that's looking down into the main hull of the boat. So I just thought, or ship, the boats go on the ship. So I thought I would just leave him open this time, you know, just for some variety when I'm looking at the different ships. And I have here, this is from the book. I've got this here to the rigging and section there. That's on pages 90 and 91. Now you can also print off paper from the Warlord's workshop, Warlord Games workshop page, I guess, and they have these instructions, so you can just download them. That way you don't have to bend your book up trying to lay it flat. And then I've got the thread that comes with the game. So I've rigged up several ships, not many, because this is kind of a new thing for me to do. But so far, I mean, I've used some thread on here, but there's still a lot of thread. So if ever you feel like you're running low, I believe this is just some black sewing thread. My wife was like, oh, I can get you a spool of that for like 50 cents, like a huge spool. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So thread is not terribly that expensive to replace if you run low. So that was one of the tips I had earlier talking about rigging these things up is don't worry too much. I mean, I hate wasting thread because I don't have a use yet for all my cut thread except maybe making rat lines. Ooh. Right now I'm using the acetate rat lines that come with the box set, the basic box set. But I was thinking of different ways I could make my own rat lines right out of the thread. I just haven't reached that level of mastery yet. But anyway, enough talking. Let's do some rigging. Now, I could show you the page of the book. I guess I will. We're going to start following the steps here. So that it has running a line. Basically, it says start here at the middle mast and run one line down here, and then a line goes out here. So it's almost like one continuous line. Or you could do two wraps. One wrap from A to B, one wrap to A to C, and it goes on either side of this mast. So this main line kind of goes on both sides. And then you run a line from the rear to the base of the middle mast here. So we'll start here. What I'll probably do is I'm just going to run one long piece of the thread. So I'll actually start at the base here, give it a wrap, and then run it up, and I'll wrap it around one time and then run it down here. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. So if I orientate the ship as it is in the book, what I'll do is I'm actually going to take the thread, wrap it around the base here. Oh, let me show you some of the tools I'm using for this. I use my X-Acto blade, my handy dandy tweezers, super glue, and these honeybee scissors that I'm borrowing from my wife. She might not know that I'm borrowing them, but I got those. Alright, so now that that's around the base of the foremast there, I'm just going to make a simple wrap, little basic knot, and pull that tight. And the thread really likes to try and wrap around other parts of the ship too. And it has it at the base So it's around, if you notice on the mast they have rungs painted on there, so it's supposed to be right around that first rung. So I just kind of drop that down, pull tight, and that may or may not be on that first rung, probably a little low. Now because it's only a single knot, it's very, very loose. So that's why I've got here the super glue. Now I gotta find better super glue. I've had at least one suggestion, so keep them coming. But what I hate about super glue, at least this cheap stuff, is it starts to dry up inside this tube, and then either you got to cut it down to try and break it, or it's just, I don't know, it's a real hassle working with super glue. So, because it kind of dries in there, and you got to scoop it out a little bit to clear the channel. And I mean, I love this stuff because that's what I use, but kind of a pain. Yeah, and then if you push on the tube to try and get the glue to come out, but it's kind of clogged, then when you get the clog out, then it just starts gushing and you lose all the glue. Alright, so I'm going to see if I can get just a little bit of glue going here. Okay, there's a little bit. So I'm going to touch it to the thread area, or at least on the mast. Okay, so I got some glue there. And I'm going to pull this tight again so that it's nice and tight. So pull on both sides, get that knot right in the glue, and then just kind of hold it. So now I've got my single knot around the mast, and if I've done it well, it's in the glue drying. And the super glue doesn't take too long. Now again, this is the part I was talking about. I hate wasting thread. Some parts of the ship are easier to get into so that you can pull your knots closer to the end so that you're not wasting a bunch of this thread. But you know, you got to make a little sacrifice here and there. So now I would take this, because it says wrap it around the middle, and that's what I'm actually going to do, is wrap it. So that'd be like the first one right there. And I actually am literally just going to wrap it around the bottom here, and it comes back around, because now I have to go up here to the front of the ship, and I'm going to wrap around the base of this part that sticks out, and that's going to give me my center line threading. But again, to kind of help hold things in place while I, you know, fiddle-faddle with cutting things, I'm going to take some glue and drop it up under the middle here. I got some. Then as I start to pull this tight, that glue is going to help hold that in place. So I'm just going to pull that snug again, hold this, there we go. I just felt it snap into place, so I know the glue is starting to hold it. But now I've got a nice tight line in the middle, and now I have to figure out about how much I want to cut, because I have to wrap it around. There's actually a little tiny gap between the figurehead and that, you know, I know it's not a mast. There's actually a section in the book here. I should probably pause when I do some of this, but the book has an amazing amount of information about Age of Sail that I have not seen in some other rule sets I've looked at. And they actually have a fantastic drawing of a ship. So that is the bowsprit. Alright, oh gosh, I just love this thing. I love cutaway pictures. Alright, so how much do I need? So I'm actually just going to make a guess. Again, I'm probably cutting more than I need, but that'll give me plenty of room for wrapping. And now I've got dangly thread to wrap around the bowsprit there at the base. So what I do is, I know I just cut that, but I always try to wet the end there. So just kind of stick it on my tongue, get it wet. That way if there's any frayed bits, it just kind of pulls it all tight together like a single thread. And I'm going to put that carefully through the gap between the bowsprit and the figurehead. And when I put this together, I try to leave a gap specifically for that step. And so now I've got thread going through the bowsprit, and I have to make a loop So again, it's a single knot. Everything is basically just a single knot. So I'm going to pull this around, and what I want to do is wrap it around that piece of thread right there, and then pull it through at some point to make that single knot. And this is also probably, depending on how fussy this is about the time I'm going to grab my tweezers. Yeah, and the thing with the thread is it has a mind of its own. So you'll put it through somewhere and then it pops right out. So I'm going to put that in. And I'm trying to find where it came through here. If it came through. It hasn't come through yet. Okay, there we go. And it popped out. So now see how it's starting to fray? That's why I gotta lick that every once in a while. Alright, so when it's being stubborn, that's where the handy dandy tweezers come in. So I'm just gonna dangle this down as best I can, reach through with the tweezer. Okay, I just kind of got it through here and it's staying. So what I'm going to do is actually try to pull this through back around to make my knot. Got it. Alright, so now that I've got it snug, I got to pull it snug. Pull it snug. It's now snug on the bowsprit, and the lines are tight between the two masts. So I'm going to take a dab of glue, drop it down there. Try not to put too much glue down there, but I need enough. And the glue, at least this one, kind of settles out a little bit. I'll take my finger, push it in there. But there, now we've got it glued. It's wrapped around the bowsprit, and I have a line. That first line is done. It takes longer than maybe it should because I'm doing it. I know some people are probably really good at this kind of thing. New experience for me, so I know I'm not that good at it. But I'm going to let those dry before I clip it. And then we're going to do the line that goes from this middle on the mizzen mast down to the main mast here. So I'll do the same thing. I'm just going to start out with some thread, create a knot. Now sometimes what I'll do is I'll pre-knot the thread, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of do this here, and we're going to lasso it around that mast. Now sometimes you got to make your loop, kind of big. I started that way too small. So we're going to start a really big loop because I got to get it around all the bits of the mast. So like a little lasso, I'm going to stick this on here, and now we're going to start pulling tight. And I want to make sure it stays above that arm. Pull a little tight. There we go. So I'm getting it above the arm on the mast and down below. And it just fell off there. Come on. Go tight. Pull it, pull it, pull it. Alright, it went right above this part, and I didn't want that. I want it underneath. So I'm just trying my tweezers, try and pull that in place. I want that under, because the picture shows that under. It's under that little black spot right there on top of the arm. Okay, I just fit it where I wanted it. I'm going to pull it snug again. So now I've got the thread in place, but again, because it's that single knot, I want to make sure that's good and solid. So we're going to drop some glue down in there. And that will kind of eventually make its way in. And sometimes I'll take the tweezer and just kind of rub the glue around and then wipe the tweezer off. So my poor tweezers are starting to build up with super glue, but I just wipe them off as soon as I can. Alright, so now I've got that single knot there. But because this bobbin is a real pain to mess with, again, I'm just going to kind of guesstimate how much thread I need to make a loop at the base of the middle mast. So I'm just going to cut, and again, I overcut because I have found myself a couple times I cut it too short and it was really difficult to work with, to make a wrap, to make a knot or anything. And now we're going to feed it through. So it goes under the lines I just did, and it's sticking to me. Alright, and now I've got it around there, so I'm going to take the tweezers to grab through, pull it, and now I'm going to get set up to make my knot down here. Oh, there's already a knot. Oh, kind of frayed. Alright, so I'm going to use my fingers here to hold this in place. I'm going to reach through. Let's see, is it over? Just making sure the thread is where I want the thread to be. Alright, it didn't end up where I wanted it. Alright, but I think I can make this work. I'm going to reach through this loop here, grab my thread. Come on. Well, it is not where I wanted it. So we're going to do the same thing. I'm just going to pull this over. This is why I got the tweezers. Alright, pull it through. Now I don't know if you can tell, I just made the loop here. So I'm going to start pulling it down towards the bottom of that mast. I hope you can see. I tried to get some lighting in here for you. Now as I'm pulling it down tight, I'm trying to keep that near the base of the mast as well. And the picture shows it's, again, oh, this one is like right on the base of that mast. So I'm going to pull that tight. And it actually is kind of getting caught on that first rung. But again, since that's just a single knot, that's really not going to hold anything. So we're going to grab the glue again, and we're going to drop the glue right there. It will just kind of pull on that, keep that snug for a few seconds. And there you go. That's actually step one right out of the book. So I'm going to go ahead and pause here, wait for this to dry, we'll clip it up, and we'll come back and look at another step. Alright, so here comes the next big thread. First I wanted to show you that when I did this middle one here, a little bit of glue got out onto this arm, and so the thread actually kind of swung out a little bit. When I popped it off, that left this piece of rigging really loose. So what I did was I just took some super glue up under here and just kind of pulled it tight. You know, pulled this up a little bit. So, you know, from a distance it's going to look fine. It pulls the rigging tight. So when you make little mistakes throughout the rigging, that's a trick I learned on somebody's blog, is you just put some glue somewhere, pull the slack into the glue, let it dry, and that will retighten slacked rigging that you want to be not slack. Okay, so now the next one we're going to run, yeah, it's rather lengthy. It's going to start from the middle, comes up here. Well, yeah, it goes from this middle, wraps around this post, comes up to the top, wraps around here to the middle, and then wraps around there. I think I just told you that. So what we're going to do is grab the thread, and I'm going to prep it here. So I'm going to make a knot down here in the middle. So I'm going to not pre-knot it. I'm actually going to run it through some of the thread that's already here. So I'm just going to run it through and kind of pull it around here. Pull out some of my slack, and we'll go ahead and make the knot right now. If I can grab the thread the way I want to grab it. Okay, so I'm going to grab the tweezers. They're not helping me here. Let's see if I can grab this way. I got these hooked tweezers, and they seem to help out. They're not helping right now. So this is basically the joy of this. So I'm going to pull this way out, and make my knot way out here. This is the part I was talking about. Feels like a waste of thread sometimes. But I'm just going to move this back close and get my single knot up under there. Now I know there's already some glue under there, but it might not be wet yet to kind of hold that in place. So I'm just going to take another dab of glue. So yeah, you got to be careful because eventually it feels like you're just making these huge glops of glue in different spots, but I think it really helps hold and secure these things. So I'm going to pull that tight again up into the glue. Alright, and I can see it glistening there on the knot. So now we just follow my plan, and what I'm going to do is I'm not going to glue this at every step of the way. I might come back at the end and glue it, but because this is going to kind of do some wraps and it's lengthy, I'm actually just going to take it, run it from the base, and it's supposed to wrap around once. So I don't like the way that's looking, so I'm just going to kind of wrap it here. There we go. I guess I'm just kind of cheating with the wraps here, and then it comes up here and wraps. I'm going to wrap it around. Sometimes this is just kind of creative wrapping, but see, now I've got the rigging the way it wants so far. Then it's going to wrap around the middle section here. So I'm just going to pull that as a wrap. It's a wrap, folks. And then down here to the middle. Pull that under. And so far, that's pulling things tight. And then it's going to wrap around here. Now this is where I'm going to cut a bit with my scissors. And we're going to see if we can make a knot around the bowsprit. And then when we do, I'll try to tighten all that, pull it tight. Hope that's on camera. So now I'm just pulling this tight, and that will pull the whole line tight across the ship. So now we have running from the middle to this back, there, up to the top, wrapped around to this middle part, down here, now it's to the bowsprit, and it is in there. I'm going to force that back a little bit. And it's pretty tight. It's pretty snug. And I shouldn't really have to glue it in too many spots. I'm just going to glue it here at the bowsprit and kind of pull that tight. So just put my dab. You know, if I had a camera person with me, this might be easier for you all to keep up with. So I apologize. Just a one-man show here. And I'm going to pull that snug. When you hear cracking, that's probably snug enough. Yep. Okay. There we go. And now we have more rigging on there. Now these loose flaps we're going to come back and remove here in a minute. Again, once that's dry, and then we'll look at the next part. Now as you can see though, it is starting to put some tension on this rear mast. Now we're getting tension in spots. So sometimes I just fiddle with the masts until things can pull, but that is going to happen. You're going to get some pulling and tugging on there, which then will cause other parts to come loose. See, now that we've got it kind of tight up here, maybe too tight, it's now causing slack down here in this rigging. That's a little slack. So what I'm going to do is, I can't really pull that loose now because that is in there tight. So I'm going to have some pull on that mast. So what I'm going to have to do is do the slack trick and tighten up the rigging down here. So what I'm going to do is put a dab of glue down here, just to show you what I'm talking about here. I'm going to put a dab of glue down here on the base of this mast. Then with my tweezers, going to pull the slack up out of here and get it as close into that glue as I can without sticking the tweezers in the glue. And give that a few seconds to dry. Count to 20, let it dry. 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000. Again, if I had someone here, they could pause the camera for me. I could count to 20 and then, you know, we'd be good. But I don't have that kind of editing capability, and I don't have another person here to help out with that. So, you know, you get what you get. But now that glue is starting to dry, so it's holding, and I now have that taut line again. So, you know, unfortunately up close I can tell that I've put too much tension on the top of that mast, sadly. But luckily this is plastic, so it's going to be just fine. And then I'm going to let that dry, cut the strings, and we'll come back and put another rigging. That's where the fun ones come. That's these side ones that are super long. Anyway, we'll come back in a minute or two. Thanks. Alright, after the pause, we're going to look at the next part. Now, this one, picture in the book, it's a doozy. You start at the top of the mast, ooh, baby spider, and it goes down to one of the holes in the back of the ship, wraps up around to the top upper part of the mast, back down to this hole that's in the hull, back up to the top. So it makes this cool double V thing. And what I did for that is I cut a nice lengthy piece of thread here. And so we're going to start out, again, it's at the top, so we're going to pre-thread that one. And trying to tie this. Sometimes I sneak off camera to try and tie some of this stuff. So what I do is, because I know that's a small thing I got to catch it to, I'll make my little loop, pull it to kind of pre-tighten it a little bit, and boom. I'm going to drop it there. I'm going to drop my little bit of glue to help hold this in place as I do all the wrapping. So get a little bit of glue. Okay, there's the glue. Pull that tight once again, because again, with a single knot, that stuff comes loose. And if I was a sailor and could do, you know, sailor knots, I could probably not use any glue whatsoever like the professionals. However, I am not a professional and I'm not a sailor, so, you know, sorry guys. Alright, now this might be really hard to see on camera and the way the ship is painted, but there is here, there's a little hole that the thread is going to go through, and that starts attaching the masts here with the rigging to the hull of the ship. So I'm going to very carefully, and I tell you, these are the ones that make me curse the most. So if I was going to be a sailor, this would be the time to start, because trying to get these things in here. I'm not saying that, you know, I'm not saying that sailors use a lot of bad language, but my dad was in the Navy. Yeah, and he can curse pretty well. Alright, so we've got that pulled through. And again, that's going to wrap, it's going to come up here and wrap around. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of thread this around. So not all of these are glued, and some of these are kind of loose wrappings until they are exactly where I want them to be. So I'm just going to kind of thread this through carefully-ish, and then so I don't lose it, I'm going to grab the tweezer and capture it, pull that through. Alright, now it caught on the back here, so we're just going to put this in place better. There. Now it is on top, and now I'm going to start wrapping it back down. Now that I've got it kind of where I want, I'm going to start bringing it down. Now it's loose. I'm not going to glue it yet, if ever. But what I got to do now is figure out how to get it through the hole on the back of the ship there. So I'm just going to grab my tweezers here, and we're going to see if I can capture this experience. And what I'm trying to do is every once in a while I do get that wet a little bit again. because as you start to bounce it against the hole where you missed the hole where the hole is, like I can see it, it's just barely missing. Gee whiz. Got a phone call. Okay, so I took care of that phone call, and then as I'm bumping the camera, I went ahead and pulled that thread through. Just get it around that arm. There we go. Oh yeah, and I can see that I cut way too much thread. I was really worried though, but we're gonna go ahead and take this up, and then that wraps around. So what we'll do is I'll go ahead and make another knot, a single knot up top, give it some glue, and then we'll call that one done. So grab the thread carefully here, run it through, and now we're going to, well, that didn't work the way I wanted. Okay, I tell you what, that's the part that I tell you in my mind sometimes I loop this in just the right way, and then when I actually go to make the magic happen, I realize, yeah, I wasn't even close. Alright, here we go. Oh, I've got my loop. I think there's a loop here. Yeah, there's a loop there. I'm actually just going to pull that tight a little bit, run it back. Let me use the tweezers. What I do with the tweezers is when the loop is like way far away, I'll just start to pre-tighten it, and then I can drag it all the way over here where I want, pull it around the arms. Before this gets too tight. Yeah, and there's still some glue there, so it's actually starting to catch on the glue that's there, so that's good. And alright. So I know you couldn't quite see all of that because my fingers were in the way, but I have now run thread from the top. Unfortunately, I got it wrapped horribly at the top. It's all on this one side. If I could have balanced it more, I think these would look better. But it started from the top to the hole to the middle part here, back down through the hole, back up to the top, and so now I have like the first kind of riggings on the back there. And that glue up top is starting to dry already, so I'm going to go ahead and snip. Now this piece of thread, I decided I'm going to use these scrap threads so I can start experimenting on making my own rat lines instead of the acetates. I think just for play purposes, well, actually the ships look pretty good even without those rat lines. Rat lines is like the next really professional master grade thing you can do with these things after you get like the sails on there. We'll even do some sails later. Alright, but there you go. So I've cut the thread and now you've got the back part. Now this next one is real similar. So you start at the top, goes down to the hole, wraps around the middle, comes down, wraps back up to the top. But then it has an additional path. It's going to go from here to the top, and then it's going to go down to the front of the bowsprit. So that one will need to be long, but I'm going to string that one off camera just so this doesn't turn out to be like a 12-hour video on rigging. But as you can see, we're maybe 30 minutes and we've got quite a bit of rigging on there, and it's already looking kind of cool. I think I like the rigging. Now that being said, this is following the Warlord instructions from the basic rule book. So people who actually know what they're doing, I've seen they've draped loose rigging between masts, and they have additional things that are not included in the book. So don't feel like that's the only way to rig these ships. If you just spend some time looking at well, I say photographs, but like paintings and things of maybe photographs of ships that other people have done rigging on. I mean, they're very elaborate. You can get quite a bit of rigging on there. So just kind of keep that in mind. This is just kind of following the book, and that doesn't even mean I'm doing it right. Alright, so anyway, let me go ahead and wrap up the middle part, and we'll come back and show you the result. But it pretty much runs the same way, except now it's going to go and include this mast and come down to the bowsprit. Alright, that wasn't as bad as I thought. So ran from the top down to the hull, wrapped around the middle here, ran it from the middle down to the hull, back up to the top. And again, that's really hard to see here as I'm holding, but you can see then that the rigging runs down, back up here, wrapped around, down to the middle, and then down here to the bowsprit. Now I almost didn't have enough, so I had to glue that to hold that in place there, because I got like a single wrap. I didn't even make a knot, so I glued that in place. So when the glue is nice and dry, I'll clip these little extra bits. So I thought I cut that one too long. Turns out it was almost too short, which I did do on one of the frigates, but all I did was where I ran out of thread, I just wrapped it around the mast, and then I just ran a short piece down to there. So this time I got it in one run, but you're starting to see now that this is, you know, starting to come to life with just a little bit there. Again, there's obviously more you can do, but just following the instructions in the book kind of really starts to give some life here to the ship. Alright, so the last one that I'm going to do, it's very similar, but it's going to be, like, I'm just looking here at the book. Yeah, because I think I messed that one up already. Yeah, I did. I combined two steps. So let me go back and fix what I got to do here. Hold on. Okay, so apparently I suck at explaining things, trying to film, make it look professional, and follow instructions out of a book. Not my thing, apparently. So I did do... Oh, I just yanked the power right out of the camera here. Now, see, that's what we're dealing with today. It's been that kind of day. Alright, but mostly, though, I was able to go back and kind of re-rig stuff. So what we're going to do is... Now that I'm kind of caught back up here, I think I've got everything repaired. Basically from top, hole, middle, kind of wrapped around, did a thing down here. I rewired some stuff, so now I've got my equal spacing on my lines to the bowsprit. I got a couple here that are kind of loose. So I found another spot that was kind of loose on the rigging. So what I'll do is, like I said, I'll just kind of pull, because as you put new rigging and you pull in different spots, you're going to find some places get, you know, tighter, some get looser. That's just kind of the nature of the beast. But I'm going to draw in some super glue and just pull them tight and glue them down. So basically what I've got left to do is run one here from this top part down to the hole, up to the middle, back down around. And when I come back up, it's supposed to have a wrap along the very top. So I guess I might start this one at the very top here of this front mast, at the very, very tippy top, and do all of that, because that's going to then run from the very tippy top out to the front of the bowsprit. And that's going to give me my 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, there's this little one here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Somewhat equally spaced rigging lines out there on the front, which is important because that's where some of they got these little front sails that will attach. So that's where we're at. So I'll go ahead and start that one and then probably finish that off camera. So the thing is, I thought about, do I want to edit out the fact that I made a big oops? No, I'll leave that in because I want you to see that, you know, one, if you do make a mistake, it's just thread. So if you have to cut it in a spot and repair it just the spot you messed up and then rerun it, that's a valid option. So you don't have to feel like you've got to rerun everything. Just kind of pick up where you messed off, rerun it, fix it, and you're back up in business. Alright, so, but again, part of this is guessing how much thread to use. So I'm just going to cut a piece, and I'm going to make my little one loop knot here. Just kind of run it through, hold it. Now, because that's an interesting thing, because I got to be on the very top here, on the tip. No tip jokes, but I'm going to pre-glue this one a little bit. Just kind of help hold it in place, because it does have to be on the very top to make this work appropriately. I've learned that. So we're going to start to snug this one up. Here we go. And we're there. Now some glue got on the string here further out, so I'm just going to take my fingers and wipe that off a little bit. There. And that's what you need. This last one that you run really needs to be on the top. That way when you run it down and you attach it to the top, then you're going to get your nice 3 front pieces of somewhat evenly spread rigging that attaches. Now, because through the process of doing this, this thread here rigging has come loose, so what I'm going to do is glue it down here and then pull that tight again. But we'll do that a little bit later. For now though, what I'm going to do is turn the camera off and begin the process of trying to rig it through the holes in the hull and back up around, and then show you what that looks like when I come back. Well, you probably want to see some of that. Thing is guessing how much you want to see and how much you just want to see finished product. So let me run this one in here. Find the hole. There it is. And on a good day, nailed it. Oh, because I ran the wrong way. I gotta go from the outside in. I wanted that to be on the other side, because the other side goes from the inside out. This one goes from the outside in. And now that's the one I can't seem to get to work. See, it starts to fray, so you have to kind of keep that moist so it stays nice and tight on the end there. There it goes. Don't pull it back out with the tweezers by accident. Okay, so we're getting that now. Make sure it's on the side of the arms I want it to be on. Come on. Need it on the back side. Now what that means is I probably should have watched better. Okay, there we go. So we got it there. And again, I run it up around this middle part here. We're going to run it right there. So what I'm going to do is use my tweezers to help guide that. And then grab it here. And once we start to pull things tight, I just got to be careful and keep an eye on the rigging that's already there and how this fits. So sometimes you have to kind of rerun the rigging once you see where it's fitting at. And that needs to come around here. Like I said, if I could hold this better and you could zoom in, you'd be able to see exactly what I'm trying to accomplish here. And sometimes part of what you're trying to accomplish is to try to figure out like how you want to run this. This isn't running the way that I want, so I'm just going to pull this back out for a second. Because again, I've got some existing rigging in the way, and I want to make sure when I wrap it, it's wrapping in the way that I want. So I'm going to come back from behind the mast with the tweezers, grab the rigging, and now pull that through. There we go. That's what I want. That way I can run it down. Now it did go on the outside of that arm, so we're just going to move that there. Okay, good, good, good. Now we got it tight. Now I'm just looking at it here. I'm just going to do a single, I think just a single wrap around. Yeah, I can tell that when I first ran some loops through there, that was pretty loose. With this piece of rigging here, it was a loose wrap, just the way it ended up. But yeah, we're going to run this around the mast here one time. So I'm just going to grab the thread, run it through here, pull, then I'm going to run it one more time through so it makes a full loop around that middle section of the mast, and then I'll run it down. If I can grab the thread. Okay, good. Now, what I'm going to do is I am going to glue it. And the nice thing is, because the way that I just ran this and the way that I'm kind of pulling on this, it actually started to tighten up that bit of thread that I said was loose. So I can just tighten this up here, I think, and if it all works out, when that's dry, that's pulling tight on those other pieces of rigging. So those might be retightened again. So that's nice. That's nice. And I still have some excess to cut, but I didn't want to cut stuff until it's all fully dried. Now, what was this one from? That one tried to get stuck somewhere else. Alright, so we got some little flags that I get to cut. Alright, but now I have to run this through that hole in the hull. So let's get that wet. If I can grab the thread. There we go. And grab it on the end of the tweezer. And then run it through. Holy cow. First shot. Got it. You are all amazing. Your energy has inspired me. Alright, so there goes. Now, this comes back up to the very tippy top. I'm going to wrap it around some of the glue that's already there. What I should do is actually make that a loop. Yeah, we're just going to wrap it around now. Again, I know my fingers are in the way, but I just wrapped it around the top of the mast because it's got some of that glue there that's already drying. And remember, I got to run this out to the tip. Now, what I'm going to do is, now that we're here at that point of the game, I'm going to go ahead and drop a dab on the tip of the bowsprit and find that thread, and now wrap it. Alright, and we'll just let the glue, I'll tie it one more time for good measure. Okay, so now after doing that part, I've noticed that this one here did come loose. It is loose. So what I'm going to do is actually glue it down in the back a little bit. And I think that will still look okay for when I attach those little sails that go up front. So I ended up with more loose rigging than I would like to have done. So I'm just going to hold that in place for a moment. But ultimately, I think that's going to work out for us pretty good. I think once it's all dry, and again, once you start to attach the sails, it's going to be hard to notice where you had to tighten up the loose rigging. So we'll just pull that down some more. And again, trying to hold that in such a way that you can see what I'm doing. So I put some glue down there, and now I'm just going to grab the tweezers and try to pull that down into the glue. Problem is you don't want to glue your tweezers into it. Now that's being stubborn. It has come down a little bit, but it is not wanting to get close to where I want. I think there is glue there. I just got to hold it long enough. I'm just trying to get it so it doesn't get the tweezers too. So let me just count silently for 20 seconds. Okay, it's not wanting to stay quite where I want it, so what I'm going to do is actually try to glue it up top here, but that's a lot of slack there. That is a lot of slack. So I'm going to think on this for a moment, figure out how best to approach this slack problem, and I'll come back and share that with you. Alright, and we're back. So with just a little bit of ingenuity, a little bit of re-rigging, you know, that I'm just going to say that's probably the thing that you just got to get out of your mind is just, you know, if you're going to do this and you make some mistakes, cool. Just repair at where you found the mistake, rerun short bits of thread, and fix it up. So once this is all dry and a lot of the, you know, glistening glue is gone, I can go back and retouch up with paint if I need to in spots, but as it stands, as I kind of hold this, I mean, that's looking pretty cool. You know, you could definitely go gaming with that. Again, might not be as rigged up as, you know, some ships should be, but it definitely starts to give you a look of, you know, hey, that looks like an Age of Sail ship. Alright, the last little bit to do for this one is on the bow. So you just run from the tip out to an end. There's a little like anchor area there on the side of the ship. I just wrap around, go to the middle, wrap, come back here, wrap, wrap, wrap. So we're going to have glue, glue, glue. I don't glue here, loose fit, glue, glue, you know, and if I need to, re-glue it there at the end. So this one isn't too bad. That one's not too bad to thread. Again, the idea is to try to guess how much thread you need. So sometimes I'll just kind of leave this on the spool until I get to, you know, near the end. So to start us off, now what's nice is because I've already got, this glue is pretty dry here, but I have a, you know, a spot out here already I can kind of line my loop up against and then start threading that front part on the bowsprit. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and make a little knot already. Get me my singular knot here, start to pull that tight, and I'm going to put a little bit of glue because again, you know, just enough to start holding things in place because the single knot tends to come loose real easy. So I'm just going to pull that tight against the thread, that's the rigging that's already there. Get that on there and it's on. Now that glue is going to help hold that tight, otherwise they come loose real easy. Same thing here, I'm going to put a dab of glue here on the end of that. Kind of get the glue going and wrap one. So now we're starting the little triangle thing. And we're going to put a dab of glue. Now at this point here, I'm probably going to go ahead and cut the thread because I can't fit that spool through these parts where I need. So I'm just going to overly guess on that. You know, and even with mistakes and over guessing, and here's some of my scraps, you know, you still have a lot of thread that comes from that starter box. This is still from the starter box. Now granted, I still got the brigs to do, but luckily those are only 2 masts. So I'm looking here, probably very similar in how they're going to go. Very similar, but less thread. But more thread because there's more brigs. Alright, anyway, we're going to put now a little bit of glue here on this part. Probably should have painted that black or something, but I think this is where the anchors would attach to. So we're going to go ahead and just put a dab of glue there. And this is the part that's kind of a pain. Because you got to get it on there and pull that tight and still be able to pull the thread through. So I'm trying to get this on here in such a way that I can now pull this through with tweezers without having that pop off of there every 2 seconds. Reach through, grab. Come on, baby. Yeah, that's gonna be a pain. Come on. Use my little tweezer, buddy. I wonder if I can just kind of pull this through here. I'm going to pull that through just a little bit. There you go. It's a little bit of tweezer gymnastics here. Here we go. Pull that under. Yeah, baby. No, baby. Yeah, baby. Come on, you. Pull tight. Ah, there we go. Use my finger. Yep. Sometimes you gotta use your finger. Alright, so we'll just put that there. A little bit of glue to help hold it in place. Then with the tweezers, this is the part I said where you start to use your sailor talk. Because I thought I had that. So I'm going to use my finger to hold that in place. Yeah. I know how to use my fingers. Alright, let's see if we can pull that tight. I'm trying to get just a little bit of a wrap on it. And that one is being very uncooperative. Trust me, I've done one of these before. Okay, so I tell you what, I've got that now wrapped. I had it wrapped. I'm trying to get that pulled snug. Because again, you don't want these all to be loose. Okay. What I'm going to do, because that was unusually difficult, is now I'm going to drop a bit of glue on there. Now that I was hoping I could pre-glue it to hold it in place. But now that it's in place, we'll put a dab of glue on it now. Oh boy, that dab of glue is a lot. I'm just use my tweezers to spread it around a little bit. That way it'll start to dry kind of thin. Okay. Let me clean off the tweezer tip. Now my tweezers are starting to get a buildup of glue, so what I'm going to do later on is scrape those down. Alright, so now we have to come up, and it's going to thread around this middle section, so I'm going to grab that and I'm going to pull that through. I'm going to run it through here. Because this is the one I thought I could run loose. And I'm going to run it around the bottom here. You gotta be careful because the problem is it gets stuck on the rolled up sail that's under the front. Now again, I apologize if you can't see clearly because the way I've got to hold this so I can see it. So I do apologize. I definitely would love you to see everything, but I think part of this again is planning how you want to run it. So I'm looking here and I want to get that nice and snug underneath there, but it's not quite getting snug where I want it to be. So I'm going to try and pull that over with the tweezers. Again, pull that tight. Yeah, it's not wanting to pull tight the way I want. So what I might do is run it under here and do a bit of a crossover. So I'm going to run it underneath the bowsprit here. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And each of these sometimes turns out just a little bit different. Just, you know, each one of these ships kind of has a personality. So this one has by far been my ship that's given me the most trouble. And there's glue there. So what I'm going to do is run this through. And now I can run it back. I'm going to clip this front part because that's just going to get in the way. And so now, as you can see, we're starting to develop that diamond kind of shape on the front. And I've got to run it around this thing again, that anchor. Or whatever that is. Maybe if I had the anchors actually attached, that would be a lot easier to deal with. Hey, it's stuck. First time. First try, got it. Now what I got to do is I'm going to go ahead and put a drop here on this tip so we can start wrapping that thread. And then that will, yeah, good, right there. Let's go this way. Now I know you can't see this at all. My hand is in the way. So I'm going to try and pull that out of the way a little bit. So there, we wrapped around that very tip. Everything's still tight. And now we just need one more dash on the end. And I'm going to wrap that around just twice. There. And I want to put a little dip here, a dip, dap, dop, right here on that anchor spot, again just to hold that in place forever. Okay, now we'll let that dry. So as you can see, I'm cutting that probably a little too soon because I'm impatient. There we go. So now looking at the front, you've got that, I don't know what shape you call that, kind of that diamond thing. I think it looks kind of cool, actually. That's me. But there it is, all wrapped around. But now you have your ship. So even with mistakes, you can still get a somewhat decent looking thing. Then it's the sails. After that, it's sails. Now you got it all rigged up. Like I said, you got to be careful back here managing the masts and the tension. Obviously I put too much here, but again, once you start to put some sails and things like that, that kind of starts to disappear a little bit. You don't notice it as much, but you know, your mileage may vary. I'm just fiddling with the mast right now, seeing if I can pull them back a little bit. But anyway, there you go. All done. With some chat time between you and I, fixing some mistakes. I think when we're done editing this, maybe an hour. It might not take fully an hour, because again, if you just sit down, follow the instruction, and stop trying to explain it to people as you do it, and pay attention to what you're doing, you could probably nail this on the first try. But hopefully this kind of gives you an idea of, you know, running the rigging according to the book. And if you haven't done it before, I've never done it before either. Like, this is my third ship I've ever done anything like this. And I want to say it does get easier over time because you start to see mistakes. But more importantly, when you see mistakes, you develop ways that you can fix those mistakes or kind of change it. So some of the rigging I have on my very first ship is mostly like this. And I found some mistakes that I made that I corrected in the second ship that I did. But then I went back to the first ship and did some repairs, and so now they're all very similar according to the book. You know, and I think that's probably the biggest thing is you start to recognize the mistakes you make, but now you know how to fix them. So yeah, I'm not too unhappy, because like right here I had that really loose rigging, and I tried the different tricks to try and tighten it. Eventually I just cut it out and just reran one little string, one little bit of thread from there to there. You know, the only problem is you got to be careful with that, because then you start to get these big wraps and globs of thread and glue. And fortunately, you've got these connection points here where the mast is built that hides some of that. But you do want to be careful. You don't want this thing to look like it's just been all overly glued and threaded together. So, you know, just be careful with it. Plan it out a little bit as you start to run your thread. I think you'll be fine. So we'll leave it at that. Now, my wife and I are actually experimenting with different materials to use for simulating canvas. We haven't quite mastered that yet. So with this ship, I might actually leave with no sails for a while until we figure out what we want to use to give ourselves kind of a canvasy look. So we've been looking at some different types of like napkins and things that have texture on there. So, you know, I might just be running this on the table without sails for a bit. Or if I just finally give up, I might just go and use the sails. But I was hoping to make something that looked a little more canvasy than what they have. What they have looks good at a distance, and if you can't make your own sails, but you know, hopefully we can make our own sails just to give a little more texture and detail to it. Anyway, there you go. You can rig your own ships now. So I hope you found this useful. I know it's probably long, but I appreciate if you watch to the end, and if you have any tips and things you want to share to the rigging community, or tips to me, because Lord knows I'm no expert at this yet, but I just wanted to share my learning attempts. Thanks a lot. Bye.